I could hit the button and then
Oh.
you could have put up the slide.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the Real Talk Tuesday Zoom webinar. Presentation brought to you by the President's Council. My name is Sarah Franks, and I'm the Director of Business Services and Client Engagement at the President's Council. Before we begin today's webinar, I want to give you each a quick background on the President's Council and the organization. It was founded in 1996, and last year marked the 25th year of creating champions that support, develop, and advocate for our region's current and future generations of Black entrepreneurs and leaders for sustainable wealth creation. Our mission as the engine for Black business growth is done through business development and entrepreneurial support, ecosystem building, champion and thought leadership, and capital formation and investments, which affecting influence and accountability at all levels that directly impact Black-owned businesses and the communities we serve. To learn more about the President's Council, please visit our website, thepresidentscouncil.com, or contact us calling 216-771-8302, or email us at info@thepresidentscouncil.com. Before we begin, as a note, this webinar is being recorded and will be available in the online community. At this time, we ask that your microphone is muted. And as you have questions or comments, you can either insert them into the chat thread and we'll pause frequently to respond. Or you can either click the raise your hand button and we will pause to recognize you. But at this time, your device should be, at that time when you're speaking, your device should be unmuted and video turned on. Today's fabulous presenter is William Parker. He is the Chief Revenue and Restructuring Officer for Parker Revenue Growth Services, a business firm that develops and executes revenue growth plans and turnaround strategies for privately owned companies that are in an undermanaged or underperforming state. William earned his bachelor's degree in business management and economics from Empire State SUNY, a certificate in the Minority Director Governance Program from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, and a certificate program in Retail Management and Strategic Planning at Babson College. William served our country as a decorated non-commissioned officer in the United States Marine Corps and was a military policeman, communications chief, infantryman, and platoon leader. William is married to Jolynn Parker, who was named Director of Leadership Cleveland for the Cleveland Leadership Center in July of 2022. Their daughter is an attorney at the Cleveland office of Squire Patton Boggs and the recent award winner at the Crain's Business Journal's Women of Note Award luncheon that took place July of 2022. Parker was recently appointed as a preferred business advisor for the President's Council and a business advisor for the Economic Community Development Institute. William, we are so grateful that you are here with us again tonight, and I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you very much, Chanel. I certainly appreciate it. And how many folks do we have on the call? Okay. So what I'd like to ask the participant is, what do they expect to get out of this particular call? Is that Thomas? Yes, Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Thomas.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. So I'd like to know what you'd like to get out of this seminar before I start.
Been in business now for 4 years. We are definitely increasing in every aspect, and really just interested in what you guys, I've heard a lot of good things about you from a few family members, a few friends, and I'm interested in seeing what you guys have to offer.
Well, today's, thank you very much for your inquiry. I certainly appreciate it. Today's conversation is going to be about the upcoming recession. Are you prepared for it? And just watching, I was just watching MSNBC News with Kramer, who was just an absolute crazy man. And he was talking about how prices are still rising, even though the Federal Reserve is still raising the interest rate. So I want to spend time talking about the upcoming recession and then how a business owner should prepare for it. That sound good?
Yes, yes, sir.
Great. All right, so let's go to, I'm going to go to share screen and we'll just jump right into this. Very good. So I think hopefully we'll touch on a lot of the things that you've talked about. But the first thing I want to discuss really about the recession is lots of people are not really familiar with what a recession means. And the economic term is that it's 2 quarters of negative growth in the economy. But the economy has changed over the last 25, 30 years, and you can't use that as the only key performance indicator regarding whether we are in a recession or not. My wife has been traveling to California, to San Diego, where we used to live, and I go to the supermarket, which I'm obviously not accustomed to doing.
Mhm.
And even I noticed I'm not spending $5 for a gallon of soy milk, or salmon has gone up, another $3, and you say, wait a minute, what the heck is going on?
Yes.
So to me, recession. Oh, or when we all went to get gas a month ago, you know how that meter keeps running and running, and when it got $60, I was like, what the heck?
Yes, and I have a security company, so having patrol vehicles on the road, funeral escorts, and so forth.
Yes,
Gas was ridiculous last month.
absolutely, absolutely. So even though it's come down to quote unquote normal, when we moved here from California in 2019, gas was $2.50. Does that sound about right, or was it a little lower than that?
Sound about right.
All right, so all of a sudden, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, spending $5.25 for gas, and I'm like, wait, what did we left California was to get away from these high prices?
Right.
All right, so the whole issue right now around the recession has to do with a lot of different issues. So one, there is this supply chain issues, which is driving up the cost of lots of products because there's a scarcity of product.
Mhm.
And when there's a scarcity of product, obviously people want to charge more money. Second thing is that gas went through the roof, which we've talked about, so I won't continue talking about that. Groceries have gone through the roof, rents have gone through the roof, interest rates are going through the roof. The price of owning a house now has increased almost 40% just in the last 60 days, with the kind of increases that have come through the situation. And lots of people have not gone through a recession before, or people have been so enamored with the pandemic and COVID and the various strains of COVID that people haven't been thinking about a recession and planning forward. So this particular presentation is really going to deal with economic decline right now, not only in our country, but around the world. And then what do business owners do to mitigate those risks? And having owned 2 companies, lost a company, exited a company, I know all of those issues, even though I've spent a big chunk of my life in Fortune 500 retail companies.
Okay.
I still am at heart an entrepreneur and a small businessman.
Okay.
Second thing is the Great Recession and the aftermath. And one of the things that I think is really important is when we start talking about recession, what does it really mean? So I, as a businessman, am worried about what really causes a recession. So one is the banks, as you know, get nervous. And once the banks get nervous, if you have a $500,000 line of credit, all of a sudden they may cut it to $250,000 and not even give you the courtesy of a phone call.
Right.
And then you go to write a check or say, thinking you got a $500,000, and all of a sudden your banker's calling you saying, well, wait a minute, you know, sorry, but you print the check, send it to somebody, and they say, well, the check is no good. Now you're embarrassed
Mhm.
because you thought everything was fine, and it's not. The second thing is that the credit rating agencies now become much more robust about how they rate companies in terms of whether it's a AAA, AA, A, B, and then obviously, God forbid, if you're anything below B, because then you're going to pay onerous interest rates to borrow money.
Mhm.
Then there's this whole chain reaction of, well, wait a minute, I've got, I thought I had X amount of line of credit. Now I got to cut expenses, which means I got 17 people. And of the 17 people, I'm going to have to let 3 go because I got to save that you know, $4,000 or $5,000 a month that I'm spending on help just to
Mhm.
ensure that I had cash flow.
Definitely.
And then one of the things that I like to spend time on when I was going through this situation back in 9, 10, 11, and part of 12 was I just called everybody together and I said, look, what are the suggestions that you all see that we need to do? And we only have this hour meeting to talk about it, because right after the meeting, we're going to execute.
Mhm.
And, you know, one guy said, look, I'll take the severance and leave, you know, because I got something else going. One guy said, we're wasting money in this particular area, and if we do the following, we should save money. And before you know it, the team came up with the ideas of what to do, as opposed to me doing a tops down situation. I just called the team together and said, look, this is what we're up against. Yes, we have money in the bank, but it's not going to last very long if we continue, if our revenue continues to drop 30–40% a week, which was what was happening back in that financial meltdown back in 2008 through 2012.
Okay.
All right, so the next part of this is, you know, the Great Recession that I'm referring to really started in 2008, because I started to notice that our revenue was really slowing down in late 2008. I mean, we managed to squeak through Christmas into the first quarter, second quarter, and then by the time we got to the third quarter of 2009, it was holy S, what the heck is going on? We're not going to be able to sustain the business this particular way. And as you all know, most businesses were hard hit or left unscathed from the meltdown that destroyed just thousands and thousands of small businesses and brought a lot of Fortune 500 companies to the brink of insolvency. And again, when I worked at large companies, I never worried about cash, but when I became an entrepreneur, it became cash is number one, cash is number two, and cash is number three.
Mhm.
Whereas one of my mentors said to me, you don't ever want to run out of cash. Second thing is you can't spend your way out of recession or borrow your way out of debt. I don't know if that makes sense or not,
Yes.
but my sense is that if it's going to be recession, then instead of having 90 days of cash, I want 6 months of cash. If I got 6 months of cash, I want 9 months of cash.
Okay.
And then I can sit down and say, okay, great. Now let's put a real plan in place. Let's go back and look at our financial plan and say, well, are we going to hit our revenue numbers? Well, I don't think so. Well, how much are we going to drop our revenue numbers? Well, 10%. What's the real number? 15%. What's the real number? Boss, I think we're going to drop 25%. Then let's put that in the plan, which now affects the balance sheet, which now affects debt payments, which now affects cash flow.
Yes.
And then you understand what the picture that you're overall looking at.
Mhm.
So then we say, so but my sense is that I'm in business to be successful and make money doing good in hard times. So I want to be like DuPont. I want to be like Rockefeller. I want to be like Carnegie. I want to be
Right.
I want to be like those guys, because
Mhm.
I tell you, if you think everybody's talking about Prince Charles is getting all this money from his mother.
Mhm.
Well, Prince Charles has got $1 billion of his own money, and his money has increased 50% since he took an active role in running his money,
Mm. Okay.
right? 50% increase. If you look at Jeff Bezos isn't losing any money.
Right.
You know, the guy running Apple's not losing any money. The guy running Tesla's not losing any money.
Mhm.
But it's guys like you and I that are all of a sudden saying, look at our portfolios going, how the hell can I be down 25% when I thought I did a great job of sitting with my financial advisor and
Mhm.
buying the ETFs that we thought would go up or at least maintain themselves in this type of situation, but they have not.
Mhm.
So the things that I look at are that when you're headed towards tough times, there are really three categories that are important to look at. One is the strategy of the business. The second are people, and the third are who are my customers. Because if I can handle those three things, then I'm fine. So under strategy, and I'm not one to read to you, Mr. Willingham, that's not something that I do.
Okay.
But I go back and look at the business plan. Is the business plan sound? Is the operating plan sound? And is the financial plan sound? Secondly, what's going on in the industry? So you said that you're in a particular business where you're supplying security and cars and things of that nature. I want to know what's going on with my competitors, and I want to go what's going on with the industry. So if my business is down 30% and the industry is down 20%, then why is there a 10% difference between my company and the industry? The other thing is about my competitors. If the competitors are only down 15% and I'm down 25%, then what the heck are they doing that I'm not doing that I can do to at least bring myself down 15% instead of down 25?
Okay.
So that's extraordinarily important. The other thing is risk. Okay, great. I've got this business. Do I go out and buy 3 more cars to take care of these particular customers that need security at night, or these funeral homes that need people? Because people are going to die whether you like it or not.
Correct.
They're going to need security because they can't get to those lights by themselves.
Yep.
But do I go out and buy the 3 cars, or do I not take the business? And those are really difficult decisions.
I'm in the middle of that. I'm in the middle of that question as we speak. that exact question. So that was
well, you can tell that I've been through this, right, Thomas? I mean,
yes, sir.
I've lived it.
Yep.
Where it's like, okay, great, we're burning X amount of dollars a week. I got X amount of dollars in cash flow. I got X amount of dollars in the bank, and my top line is not growing. How long am I going to last? So I like to look at risk. From a banking relationship, is the banker that I'm with the guy that's getting skittish and ready to run at the first sign of trouble? Or are they sitting with me talking about how can we manage our way through this tough time until things turn around? And I can't tell you how many companies that I work with, and I say to them, do you have an entrepreneurial bank, or do you have a bank that's protecting their downside and not worrying about you as a business? And I had a client that I was working with who came into the office kind of crestfallen, and I said, what's the matter? And he said, I got up this morning and there was a phone call, or there was a phone call on my phone that my banker told me that he cut my line of credit from $1 million to $500,000, and he didn't even have a conversation. And then, as we were saying before, if you're going to have risk management, then you obviously got to look at the capital that you're going to invest in the business, right?
Okay.
Then I look at people. So do my people have performance objectives? And if they have performance objectives, am I measuring them every month, sitting with them saying, hey, you're doing a great job. Here's some things that I think you need to do to improve. What do you think you need to do to improve? And then let's put that in writing, and then I will measure how you're doing. If a person is doing well, then I want to pay them for performance. So let's give them a pay raise. Let's put bonuses in place if they hit certain key performance indicators. And then overall, what's the education plan that goes back to the business plan and the finances of the company, so everybody understands what is needed of them to make sure that the company survives. I have found that when I'm honest with people and explain to them what is going on, that they are more apt to come up with innovative ideas, creativity, and thoughts that I think I'm the smartest guy in the room, and then you find out that you're not the smartest guy in the room.
Right.
And then from an operations and supply chain, what is the expense of moving from point A to point B? If I had, for example, if I had planned on having cars, forgive me, for 15 funerals and I only do 10, then how much was the revenue for the 5 that I thought I was going to do? And now I got to deduct that from revenue so that I have a true financial picture of where the heck I'm going. And then from a supplier relationship kind of situation, it's really important to understand suppliers who are your vendors essentially, and what kind of terms are you getting from them, what kind of payment terms are you getting from them, Are they paying you on time, or are they in the same boat you are? And all of a sudden, you're not as important to them paying you as you have other vendors that you're not paying. And before you know it, you're in this vicious cycle. I see that
Yeah,
Michelle Crawford has joined. Hello, Michelle.
Yep. Yeah, unfortunately, I just, my operations manager and I just got together and looked over numbers. We have 3 embassy suites and 2 residents in, and their
Yes.
combined far as what's out of services rendered is
Yes.
just shy of 19,000. No, I'm sorry, it's a little over 19, just shy of 20,000.
Yes.
But
Yeah, and one of the things that I have done, Thomas, is said, look, I'll give you a 5% discount if you pay me right now.
Okay.
Because I can't wait. It's better to get 95% of my money in 30 days than the 120, 160 days I'm getting nothing.
Right.
So I've used all the tricks in the book to make sure that people will pay me. And then from your side, innovative products may not apply, but if you're giving great customer service with people, then that's your people are your product and your cars are your product.
Yes.
And then I look at margin and liquidity drivers. So am I making more money on doing funerals than I am on doing security? Am I making more money on security than I am on funerals? Am I making more money taking people to the airport than I am to downtown? I look at all of those parts of my business as products, and I want to understand, where am I making the most money? So am I making more money doing funeral control? Am I making more money, taking people to hotels and the airport? Am I making more money with security, where I'm driving around? I got to punch the clock every hour to let people know that I am doing my job and I am, walking around, or I'm calling in, or all of the different technology that we have that people got eyes on you everywhere. So I like to look at what profits are coming from what parts of the business.
Gotcha.
And then who are my key customers? Am I keeping them happy? If they're going through tough times, what can I do to help them? So that I don't, lose one of them. Right. And if I have customer concentration, where you said embassy suites or X amount of funeral homes are 25, 30% of your business, you don't want one customer to be 25, 30% of your business when you're going into a recession.
Gotcha.
It's not a good place to be, because if that customer leaves you now, instead of having 100% of revenue, you're at 75%, and most companies can't survive on 75% revenue of what the plan was.
Right.
And then finally, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
No, I was just in agreement. So I understand that.
Okay. And then from a customer satisfaction, during a recession, I want to make sure that I'm going overboard to take care of my customers. And that means if I have to visit them personally, take them to lunch, take them to dinner, am I treating you the right way? Am I serving your needs the right way? Are my drivers servicing you the right way? And if they're not, please tell me about it, so that I don't lose you, and I'll make it right. And then we just talked about the channels of distribution, which could be transportation to the airport, transportation downtown, funeral homes, security, things of that nature. And making sure that you're looking at the profits of each of those pieces of the business. Okay. So then I go through, so great. So how do I prepare for a recession? Let me move this over a little bit. There we go. So how do we do that? How do we do that so that we make sure we know where the heck we're going? So the first thing is, I go back and look at my strategy, the mission, and the value proposition. Is it still viable during a recession? If it's not, then what adjustments do I need to make to ensure profitability and the long-term sustainability of the business? The other one is sitting down doing what I call a SWOT analysis, which are strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What are my strengths of my business? What are the weaknesses of my business? Which is the internal view. And then the external view are the opportunities and threats. I have walked into more companies and seen opportunities bouncing off the wall, but the business owner is so buried in the operating issues that they're not taking advantage of opportunities. So it's important to do strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which then means that the business owner or the CEO of the company and his team are telling me what are the great things about the business, and then what are the areas that need to be corrected and it needs to be done relatively quickly.
Okay.
Thirdly, it's about the people. If the people aren't taking care of the customer, then the business is going to suffer. If you're turning over people like people are right now, where people think they can get a better deal wherever they go, and I swear they're like the basketball players and the football players. Well, I'm making $23 million a year, but I'm not happy with that. And Deshaun Watson just got $40 million a year, so I want $40 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a conversation with somebody today. Said, "Well, wait a minute. Deshaun Watson's resume is not the same as Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson's saying, guess what? I'll play out my last year and the heck with it. I'll go someplace else if you guys don't want to pay me."
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing pertains to a driver. A driver could be making $20 an hour, but somebody down the street says, "I'll give you $25 an hour." And now you got a car sitting idle, or two cars sitting idle, not producing the kind of revenue that you think. So I always want to take care of my people. I want to hear what they have to say. And sometimes it may hurt like heck when you hear the truth, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I respect honesty.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way I was raised.
Yep, same.
All right. So so I'm from Pittsburgh. So every now and then you hear references to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Sorry to hear that, sir.
So don't. Well, look, man, I got 16 parties in my trophy case. How many you got? Okay, so then I want to get into the story about banking. If I don't have a written story when I go to talk to my bank or SBA or other financial institution, I got to tell them the story about my business so they don't pull the plug on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to meet with my banker once a month. I would present the numbers. I would show all the key performance indicators. I would tell how much cash flow we have. I give them an update on our plan. I give them an update on our operations. I give them an update on our milestone calendar, and then how, if we weren't hitting plan, what we're going to do to hit plan, so that the banks didn't turn off the faucet.
Okay.
And then and as you go upward, where it says revenue diversification strategies and customer relationship management, I won't spend time on the customer relationship management, but I talk about revenue diversification because it's important today. So, because, for example, you may have, okay, Bill, William, my funeral business is good, my security business is good, my hospitality business is good. But then I say, well, are you in the food delivery business? You say, no, I really am not in the food delivery business. That's what I mean about revenue diversification. What other opportunities are there for you to utilize those cars to drive revenue? And perhaps you need to look at opportunities or other businesses that you're not in that could help you increase revenue and make money. I don't like taking on businesses that drive the top line, but don't do anything to increase the bottom line. And I had a business owner say to me, well, I took the business just to cover operating expenses. And I said, if that business goes away, you are in deep poopski. Right? So you took on business just to cover operating expenses, now it's gone. How the hell are you going to cover the operating expense? And then you took on unprofitable business, which was even worse. From that perspective. And then we spend a lot of time talking about stabilizing finances, cash flow, and getting paid faster. I want my money, and if somebody says, well, I don't have it, then guess what? It may be a great customer, but I'm going to go to a collection agency and I'm going to get my money. Okay. If you got, as you said, you have $20,000 outstanding, what does it take to get that money so that you can run your business? Because I always want to know what my days of payment are, what my receipts are, and then what my outflow of cash is. Because one of the things I am absolute death on is, what is the outflow of cash versus the inflows of cash? And based on the inflows of cash, what are we using that cash for? And then over to the right is obviously the leadership, who is the leader being on top of things as opposed to, well, things will get better. What I call laissez-faire management, but you don't want to go the other way where you're driving everybody nuts, what I call the weekly numbers, because they go up, and some weeks you have a great week, some weeks you have a lousy week. But at the end of the month, I look at, am I going to hit my plan from a forecast perspective? And then, am I meeting my objectives and my accountability overall? Do I have information technology systems in place to tell me how I'm doing? I don't want to know after the fact what happened. I want to know and forecast before the fact,
Yes.
so that I can make the kind of management decisions that ensure that I have long-term sustainability of the numbers.
Mhm.
So I'll stop there and ask questions, since that's a fairly long chart in terms of preparing for a recession. Any questions for you, Michelle? Okay, so Mr.
No, sorry, I was late.
That's yes or no?
No, keep going.
Okay. All right. So now let's talk about how a recession affects the finances of of the business. Oops, sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. Let's get, there we go. Let's go back here. All right, a little better, but not where I want to be. Okay. So hold on one second. Let me see if I can move this. There we go. Better. Okay. So as I look at the next parts of this, what I want to be able to look at is what does a recession do in terms of the finances of the business? And as you can tell, I'm spending a lot of time on the finances of the business, because going through a recession, it's important to look at, as I said, people, strategy, and finances. So in the blue portion of the presentation, you see working capital and liquidity. Liquidity means, do I have at least 13 weeks of cash on hand? Number two is, what's my profitability and what's the outlook for the industry that I am participating in? Do I have the right employees in place? Are they in the right position in the company? And are they as productive as you would like for them to be? And then overall, what's my balance sheet look like? What's my income statement look like? And what does my cash flow look like? Which really tells me what my financial position is. So I won't get into the yellow boxes on the side, but you can see it's cash flow is important. Credit flow is important in terms of working capital. Then gross margin being an ongoing concern. And God forbid you're having shrinking EBITDA. Does everybody understand what EBITDA is?
Yes.
EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. And amortization is the payments that you're making on your debt, the payments you're making to run your business. And depreciation obviously is you're depreciating your assets because they lose their value over time. On the other right-hand side are employees. So do I need to reduce my workforce? Can I have one manager take on 2 management roles? And some of these are very difficult positions. I remember in my company, we were in the apparel business, and I had recruited people from Banana Republic and Old Navy to work in my new company. And then we hit that rough time, and then I had to let those people go. It was one of the hardest things that I had to do in my career. So I try to keep as many as possible, and some had to take on two roles. And some of them took on 2 roles and did extraordinarily well, and wound up getting, as we wound the company down, getting really strong and powerful positions, which made me feel good, even though I was sad to lose them. But this, you can see that a recession really affects the finances of the company. I'll give you an example. So Walmart and Target and Kohl's and Penny's all are sitting with billions of dollars more inventory than they need right now. And they're taking markdowns that are doing what? They're compromising their gross margin. If you reduce your gross margin, then you don't have as much money to pay your expenses. And if you don't have as much money to pay your expenses, then you've got either a smaller profit or a loss. And if you have a loss, then the loss affects cash flow. So all of these things are interlocking pieces. And when I ran the business, I believe I would sit with my CFO a couple of times a week, just to go through the kind of process. Where are we? Where are we going? What's it going to look like? What happened? And then we did a lot of what if scenarios. What if we drop 10% in sales? What if we drop 20% in sales? What if we drop 30% in sales? Or the other conversely, what if we pick up 10% in sales? And what if we pick up 15% in sales? And then how do we drive revenue during a recession? Because I can't be defensive and just keep cutting and cutting and cutting. Before you know it, I don't have a business.
Mhm.
I am a firm believer that you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So in our household, we have a income statement, we have a balance sheet, and we have a cash flow, just like I do for a business. And when I married my wife 30 years ago, she thought I was nuts. And I said, honey, this is the way I run my business. This is the way we're going to run our family business, because we've got income and we've got expenses, and we have cash flow, and I'm going to run our home finances just like we run our business finances. So up in the left corner, it's how do I drive good sales? You heard me talk about bad sales, or I'm going to take sales just to cover my operating expenses. Secondly, I got to make sure that my gross margin, which is how enough money to pay my operating expenses. I want to look at every category of business, every item. Do I need to carry them, or can I cut my inventory so then I'm preserving cash, which means that I decrease the outflow of cash, and am I taking care of my best customers? On the right-hand side is how do I lower the cost of goods, negotiate cost reductions with my suppliers, extend payment terms. It's really amazing. Some people will not call people to say, look, I'd like another 10 days or another 15 days. They just are silent, and then the payables of the person that you owe money to gets upset because they're trying to plan their cash flow no differently than you are. And then in inventory, do I have more inventory than I really need? And I'll just give you for instance, Target had close to $15 billion more inventory than they needed. And their profits for the second quarter dropped 90%. And their profits for the third quarter are going to drop about the same because they're taking markdowns to clear all this product. In the bottom left-hand quadrant, the control operating expenses, I won't read to you, but it is every week I want to know what the reconciliation is with against our finances and our budget. I want to have a cash flow reconciliation with the bank. And then I want to look at my fixed expenses versus variable expenses. And fixed are things like light, telephone, rent payments, things of that nature. Those are all fixed. Variable can be, geez, do I really need to, people are making phone calls like crazy. My phone expense is going, through the roof. Can I do those kinds of things to make a difference in terms of cash flow? And then on the right-hand side, I normally don't look at 13 weeks of cash. I want to look at cash for the year. So if I take my budget and my balance sheet and my income statement, then I can forecast my cash flow to say, do I have 26 weeks of cash on hand? Do I have 52 weeks of cash on hand? Do I have 40 weeks? And then what are the weeks in the month where I'm going to have negative cash flow so that I understand I have enough money to cover that shortfall? Am I making sense?
Yes.
I want to make sure that I'm preaching to the congregation, because if you're preaching to the choir, you're preaching to the wrong people.
Yes, sir.
Okay, amen. The other part, so I won't spend more time on these type of things, but I can just share with you what this really looks like. And if you want to talk later, you can call Sarah or Chanel, and we can set some time to talk. Sometime this week or first part of next week.
Okay.
So when you look at the overall factors related to financial and operation management, the key is how do I, and I'm going to follow the arrow from the right to the left, so I'm going to go clockwise, not counterclockwise. I've got everything is, what is my business worth? And I find so many business owners who either underestimate the worth of their business or they overestimate the worth of their business. Either way, it's not a good situation to be in. So what is my business worth? And then how do I decrease the capital in the business so that I make sure I have enough cash? Secondly is reduce business risk. Instead of buying those 3 cars, you know what? I'm going to run the cars that I have. Instead of running them 10 hours a day, I'm going to run them 12 hours a day. It's no different when I lived in New York City and I had friends who owned, taxis. They would buy a medallion And that car ran 24 hours a day, and unless it was in the shop getting repairs.
Mhm.
You know, because they had to maximize revenue. And the guy said, look, if a car's sitting empty, I'm not making any money. If I'm not making any revenue, then I can't make any money.
Right.
You got to reduce the cost of capital. So sometimes you go to a person, an alternative financing person, who may say, well, the cost of my money is 12%. And you're like, 12%? Are you crazy?
Mhm.
And the guy says, well, will the bank lend you the money at 5%? Well, no, they won't. Then guess what? You want the money or not?
Mm.
And I can't tell you how many times I've had to say to a business owner, do you want to go out of business? Or do you want to pay the 10% interest on the money versus the bank not giving to you? You do it for a year, have a nice clean record, then go back to the bank and then refinance the deal. And now you can cut your interest payments almost in half.
Okay.
And then reduce customer concentration. I don't want one person that's more than 15% of my business.
Hmm.
Because I worked at Kmart as a vice president of merchandising, and everybody's familiar with Rubbermaid. And Rubbermaid was close to a third of my business, but they never delivered the product on time. They were always late. We were always out of stock. We would run an ad and no product, and the customers were just murdering us. And I finally made the decision to throw Rubbermaid out. So how do you throw out a company that's 30% of your business? I went to some other folks and said, we're going to buy every one of Rubbermaid's products. We're going to knock them off at less money, but we're going to put more quality into the product. And I'll take a short-term hit, but long-term, I'll be in a better position.
Mhm.
And I can remember the president of the company saying to me, well, I'm going to go to your boss, and because that's just not going to happen because we're Rubbermaid. Well, of course, I'm smart enough to go see my boss before and lay it out. I can't make those decisions on my own.
Mhm.
And we threw them out, threw them out of the company, threw them out. Don't come get your stuff. We're done. You can't treat us this way. And I learned a valuable lesson of not having one company that was more than 15% of my business.
Okay.
And then last is operational, what I call the discipline of execution, operating the business, scrutinize everything. I grew up in New York when I started in the business at Macy's in New York. And I used to take beatings every day from the management team that worked there, who called themselves hired assassins. And they taught me the business to say you scrutinize everything, you look at everything, you challenge everything, you don't accept anything until you're totally satisfied.
Okay.
Because otherwise, remember, it's your business, not somebody else's business. The other part of this is increasing efficiency and acquisition attractiveness. I am amazed at the amount of people that have companies that say, I'm never going to sell my company. And I said to them, well, excuse me, have you watched the news of how many companies are bought and sold every day? The purpose is creating enough value in the company where you can sell it and make a nice profit, take that money, put it away, take care of your family, take part of it. You want to go buy another business, go buy another business. But you don't fall in love with the business, because then you never increase your real wealth. And there's a big difference between being rich and the difference between wealthy. So Oprah is rich, Warren Buffett is wealthy.
Okay.
Oprah is rich, but the guy running Apple is wealthy. The crazy man that runs Tesla is wealthy. He's not rich, right? Jeff Bezos, who started Amazon, is wealthy. He's not rich. Now, if you take it down to a small business level, if I started my business and I can sell it for $6 million or $50 million or whatever, that you got to have a number in your mind of what you want to do with your company. So that if, let's say, you hit a tough time, and there's still people that want to buy businesses where there's good times or bad times, but you've got to have all of these things in place. For example, do you have competitive advantage in the marketplace? Do you have attractive financials? Is your company really set up in the right way to really sell? We do exit planning as an organization, to sit with people and say, okay, great, what's your number? And some people say, well, my number is $20 million. And I remember saying to one guy, well, if I can get $18 million, would you be happy with that? He said, but you promised me 20. And I said, excuse me, the company's worth 9. If I take it from 9 to 18, 100% increase, You mean to tell me you're not going to be happy with that?
Mhm.
And so he sort of began to see the light, and his wife said to him, "What are you, crazy?" So most
Right.
people, are going to listen to their partner or their wife, whichever, right? At
Mhm.
least I do. Hell, otherwise,
Right, right.
it gets cold in that garage in around January 1st, man, and I
Yes,
don't like
sir.
sleeping in my car in the garage. All right, so I want to make sure I have time for questions. So I'm going to move to last thing. I spent 6 years in the United States Marine Corps, and our favorite motto is improvise, adapt, and overcome. In other words, don't get discouraged during a recession because things are not good. If you're going to put this particular formula in place, it will ensure that your company will have long-term sustainability and you can sleep at night. Because as a business owner, to be perfectly frank, I did not sleep many nights. My wife didn't sleep many nights. When I was working for somebody, it was different because I didn't have to worry about everything.
Right. Yeah. My wife and children, they're experiencing that now. I'm in bed early. I'm up even earlier, and
Yes.
when I'm asleep, I'm still up really. So
Yes.
yeah, worried about it. Worried about a clock in. I normally get up about 30 minutes before my first clock in, so I'm up at
Yes.
3:30 every morning. I understand all of this right now.
Yeah. And one of the things that I will say is that take care of yourself
Mhm.
because the body will wear out, the mind will wear out, and the spirit will wear out if you don't take breaks.
Yes, sir.
And I used to make sure that I would say to my wife, every 13 weeks, if we just get away for 4 days, that's enough to recharge. I could play golf.
Mhm.
We lived in San Diego, so there are lots of Indian casinos that have fabulous resorts that aren't very expensive because they're on Indian ground, so they don't have to pay all the taxes that a normal casino would. And if you go to Vegas or go to California or someplace else,
Mhm.
but the resorts are fabulous, the restaurants are fabulous, the hotel rooms are cheap. We could play golf, we go to wine country, whatever, just to clear the head. And I would tell people, I am not answering my phone. You got a chain of command in place.
Yep.
And call the next person in line, or
Mhm.
as we say in football, next man or next woman up.
Yes. Yes.
So there's something I pulled away from Winston Churchill that I keep in front of me a lot. One is success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that really counts. And when I lost my company, nor I was sleeping 4, 5, 6 hours a night. Then it went to no hours a night. And then it went to, excuse me for saying this, to throwing up, in the middle of the night because my nerves and my system was just on edge. And then then you don't eat, which is even worse.
Mhm.
So I understand when people say, well, Park, have you work for big companies? Of course I did, but I also, borrowed a lot of money or my own money to start a company. And one company I was able to sell and one company I lost. So that's just part of being an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
But because they say success is not final, just look at Tom Brady. I hate to use a sports analogy, so please forgive me, Michelle. Here's a guy that's got everything under the sun, a fabulous life, and his wife is pissed off because at 45 years of age, he still wants to play football, but she's raised the kids, put them in school, takes care of them, takes them on vacation, takes care of Tom. And he's like, well, he's being selfish because he wants to play football. Well, God forbid at 45 years of age, he gets a broken leg. His career's over, right? He's done, kaput, finished. And it's just, sooner or later, it's like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan at one point couldn't jump 3 inches off the ground.
Right.
And it took him a long time to finally realize I don't have it anymore. But in business, we can always come back. That's why I say failure is not fatal. I talk to more private equity companies who have lost tens of millions of dollars on investing in companies. But for every one that they lose, there are 4 or 5 where they hit home runs.
Okay.
So I wanted to share that. I wanted to share that with you. And then the last slide is about our organization. So we are a business management firm for privately owned companies. We are in the retail, consumer products, light manufacturing, business services, and construction industries. Our services are, we develop what I call organizational business assessments to make sure that companies are put together the right way. We make sure that there are business plans, financial and operating plans in place. And then we want to prepare a company for an exit so that, because it takes a year and a half to get a company ready for sale. Some people say, well, I'm going to sell my company next month. And I'm like, you're not ready to sell your company. Well, why not? Well, your finances, you don't have audited financials in place. You don't have information technology in place. Your finances are really not as strong as they'd like to be. You get the wrong people in the wrong jobs and what have you. And any smart business person is going to come in and offer you less for your company than you think is worth, which is going to be embarrassing and hurt your feelings. So we also look at revenue growth, because to me, if the business is not growing, then I can cut expenses all day long, but sooner or later I'm going to go out of business if I don't have top line growing. Mm-hmm. And then I do what I call CRO, Chief Revenue or CEO or COO roles, where folks need somebody to come in on either a temporary basis or a full-time basis to get the ship in place. And then at that point, the person can take the business back over and run the company. And then there's my website, my LinkedIn profile for your knowledge. And I did all that in 54 minutes. 55 minutes so that we can have time for questions. Even though Chanel and Sarah always make me have an hour and a half, there's no way in hell I'm going to spend an hour and a half doing this, because I want to leave a lot of time for questions. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to I'll leave this up, and then I'll put it back at the beginning, and then I'd like to hear what you all think about the presentation and what questions do you have so that I can meet your needs. So Michelle, I'll start with you.
Okay.
I was in the Marine Corps for, as I said, for 6 years, and it's like, okay, it's called voluntold.
No worries.
Yeah. So what did you think? And tell me what you got from this or what you didn't get. I mean, I like to hear both.
Sure. So I really was just planning to be a fly on the wall. So thought the information was really valuable. I'm not really a business owner,
Yes.
so related more on the personal side, but do have hopes of starting a business at some point.
Yes.
With some family members. So, of course, the financial side and the number side is always, for me, the most difficult part, because I kind of work in the creative industry. So
Yes. Yes.
I always like to just listen in
Yes.
to get the terminology and all those things. So, no.
I grew up in the fashion business and retail business in New York City. And the creative people had people like myself run the company while they were doing all the creative stuff.
Right.
Because you know what, all of our heads are built differently. I don't have that kind. If you said to me, here's a piece of paper and a pen, I'm going to put you in a blank room, white walls, white chair, white furniture, white clothes, and come up with an idea that colorizes this room, I'm not the guy.
Right.
But if you want to get the money in place and the business plan in place and structure the business and get the showrooms built and get the customer play, I'm the guy. That's what I do. That's what I do really well. And that's my creative side. So I'm creative on the operating financial side. I'm not as creative on the business side, except when it comes to product. I can look at product and tell you whether it's going to sell or not. Mm-hmm. And I used to upset a lot of my buyers and the fashion people. And they would say, you're just a numbers guy. No, time out. That's the ugliest sweat I've ever seen in my life. And here's why. Or that line is not going to sell and we got real problems. So I would sometimes bring my numerical side to the creative side to say, I don't get it. I don't see it. It's not going to work. And I would say 9 times out of 10 I was right. There's always that time you're going to miss, from that perspective. So make sure when you're taking family money, make sure you know how you're going to pay it back.
Okay.
All right, because I did that with my son, and then he got behind in payments, and then before you know it, the relationship changed. So the next time, he finally paid me. It took a while, and then he wanted to do it again. Except this time, I put a contract in place. Mm-hmm. And he said, why can't we have the same deal we had? I said, because I'm not waiting for you to pay me my money. So your house is now my house if you don't pay. And he was like, but Dad, why are you being so cruel? Because it's my money. I'm not being cruel, I'm a businessman.
Right.
And the
Wow.
minute I get my feelings involved, then it's family money, and no family money, you got to have a return on it. So,
Mhm, mhm.
so any other thoughts, Michelle, before I go to Thomas?
I guess if you had to make a guess,
Yes,
just curious, what if you're starting a new business
yes,
in the recession climate,
yes.
then are there any, I don't know, case studies, or is it some aspects of the business that you should pay more attention to?
Yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes. So let me see if I can go back to, I'm gonna share this one more time. So share the screen. And let's get back to here. Share. All right. So remember this slide?
Mhm.
It's still loading for me.
Oh, okay. Let me know when it's up. You know, I could sing the Jeopardy song. Do, do, do.
That's the spinning wheel.
So you're still buffering?
Yeah.
That's all right. So I'll talk a little bit until it pops up for you. But the
Okay.
three things that must be in place are the strategy, the people, and who the hell are you going to sell this product to? And then to me, what's most important is the money, the money, the money.
Okay.
Because without the money, there's no mission. Without the mission, there's no business. Without the business, you're going to go work for somebody, which means you won't realize your dream. So when I started, for example, because I had worked for, really large retail companies most of my life, Macy's, May Company, Target, Kmart, Banana Republic, Old Navy, and then president of Gateway's retail stores. I knew all the things that I needed to do to start my company. And the first thing was the business plan, the operating plan, and the financial plan. And then I had best case, worst case, realistic case. Because it's really amazing how all of a sudden you think your best case is terrific and it turns out being your worst case. So strategy, people, customers, and money.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Thomas,
Yes, sir.
you still with me?
I am.
All right, sir. So what other questions do you have that you'd like to share?
You know what? No real questions. I did learn a lot from tonight. One thing that stood out the most to me was when you stated no one client should be more than 15% of the company business.
Yes. I always say if the customer walks away with 15% of business, can you survive or not?
Mhm.
If they got 30% of your business, I think the chances of survival are fairly bleak.
Mhm.
And I did, we used to run scenarios, say, okay, if we lost our biggest customer, what happens with revenue? So then we would do a financial forecast that said, we got 30% less revenue.
Mhm.
What do we need to do with expenses? What do we need to do with cost of goods? What do we need to do with people? What do we need? And then you look at it and go like, God, I don't have a business left. I can cut as much as I want. I can't cut enough to save the company.
Yeah, I'm going through that now. I had a medical facility, and it was temporary. They were based out of town. They were trying to do a test run here.
Yes.
It did last for a little longer than expected because of COVID. It actually did help us out. And
Yes.
then when they went back to Arizona, they took about 40, my operations manager has the real numbers, but I want to say about 43 to 45%. So that's major. So we had to pick up a couple extra things until the next comes in.
Sure.
And we're in the process of closing. I just brought on. I let a couple of my guys go. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I couldn't pay them. So in business, it was it's me or them. So
I
I let him
understand.
go, but I did bring on someone in sales to
Right.
specifically target getting the accounts that are needed.
Absolutely.
So I think
Absolutely.
it was a good move, business wise. Took the feelings out of it and realized I had to do what I had to do, or like you said at the very end, or I'll be going back to work for someone else.
Yeah, and once you work for yourself, it is really hard to go work for somebody again.
Yes.
It really is. And I remember companies that said to me, well, would you like to come to work for us? I mean, well, if my company is a standalone company, sure, but if I'm going to work for you and close my company, one of the reasons I became an entrepreneur was not to do that.
Correct.
You know, I spent 30 years working for big companies. I don't want to spend another 20 years working for doing the same crap again.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for being crude, but you know, that's life.
No, it is.
Yeah. All right, so we'll do last call before I turn it back over to Chanel and Sarah. So last call for questions.
No more questions. Thank you for everything this evening.
Well, it's again, it's my pleasure. So absolutely, Michelle. And if you guys want to talk off the books, I don't, you know, I don't, you know, charge for just conversation, and you know, just call Sarah. Sarah will give you all my contact information, and I'd be delighted just to spend time with you, because I've been extraordinarily fortunate as a Black American to be able to go from really what I would call you know, hostile environments to you know, to climb the corporate ladder and be successful. So I have all this wisdom and knowledge and gray hair now, and I might as well share it. So thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Thomas. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah now.
Of course.
And Sarah, back to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Let me
Yes.
just play from current slide. But William, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Just could take a moment to highlight two of our President's Council programs. The first is the Verizon Small Business
Excuse
We're
me.
Ready program. This is a free online curriculum designed to give small businesses the tools it needs to thrive in today's digital economy through personalized coaching and learning plans. And currently, they are doing, you have the opportunity, if you log on, create an account, take 2 of their courses, you'll be eligible for a $10,000 grant. So in a second, I'm going to drop the link into the chat. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at sarah@thepresidentscouncil.com. And the other program is the PC Buys Black Marketplace. This is designed to connect local Black-owned e-commerce and brick-and-mortar businesses who are interested in selling products and services to local shoppers. And for more information on that, you can reach out to the following email address. It's eeayb@thepresidentscouncil.com. I will stop sharing. Make sure I get this link in the chat. We are so grateful for all of you for joining, and we hope you have a good rest of the evening. Mr. Parker, thank you so much.
You as well.
Have a
Thank
good-
you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.